Hi everyone, this is Paul here for the Magdalene Centre. Today I'm doing the Signs and Seasons report for the week commencing the 17th of January, highlighting the key transits taking place this time and the aspects, and explaining what these themes mean for us and what we can expect during the week. So, with astrology, one thing I just want to clarify is it doesn't control our lives, it's just an influence. We all have free will, we all get to choose how we respond to anything, how we act. But if we understand what is going on around us, the astrology really gives us an opportunity to take a more conscious action that's aligned with what's going on, rather than trying to fight the flow. It's learn to go with the flow and let it guide us in order for us to manifest what we need. Now, as usual, start off with the moon's transit through the signs. We begin with the moon in Capricorn, and we also have the new moon in Capricorn on Wednesday in the early hours universal time. And this is a time of where most people may be looking at things like dedicating ourselves to hard work, our commitment to our goals, and taking any ideas that we may have and converting them into reality. So it's taking an idea and then committing the actions necessary to manifest it. And on the same day, the moon's going to move into Aquarius, and this is a time of looking at the big picture, understanding our link, or what gifts we have that we need to be sharing with humanity. Because once we've achieved our own personal growth, it's then time to give back. It's time to look at what knowledge do we have, what wisdom do we have that we can share that will bring improvement to the lives of the people around us. It's also working and developing a community of like-minded people. And then on Friday, the moon will move into Pisces, and this is a time where it's that feeling of oneness, and it's also a time for meditation. The moon's going through the last sign of the zodiac, so it's a time of reflecting and spending time in meditation and allowing that sense of oneness to pervade our feelings, so we get that feeling sense that we are part of the universal consciousness. We're not just separate individual soul, or separate individual ego rather. And then on Monday, the moon moves into Aries, starting a new cycle through the zodiac, although this is obviously part of a new lunar cycle, having had the new moon in Capricorn. And this is a time for taking the actions necessary to manifest our goals. It's taking action, being assertive, and setting our goals and initiating new beginnings. So those are the themes that the moon's highlighting. Now, as I said, we have a new moon in Capricorn. This is an opportunity to set new intentions or a new way of embracing the energies of Capricorn. So we may be looking at things like, so sometimes it's helpful to reflect around the time of the full moon and new moon, and let it guide us as to what we want to create, or how we need to improve our uses of the energy of the sign. So with Capricorn, we're looking at things like our accomplishments, our goals, our commitments. Do we have the discipline and perseverance and self-control necessary to manifest them? Do we have the endurance to keep going, pushing through obstacles, or do we give up? So the new moon in Capricorn is an option to set new intentions in these areas. Like, we may decide that our self-discipline isn't great, so we want to set a new intention about improving that, and then allowing the 2 weeks to the new moon or the full moon to show us how I've done, but also have the 6 month goal in mind as well, because this is when we have the full moon in Capricorn showing the fruits of what I set now. So with the new moon in Capricorn, this is a time for setting new intentions along lines of our commitment in being the authority in our own lives, rather than relying on other people to tell us everything or tell us what we should be doing. The only person who can ever truly know ourselves is ourselves. So for that, we need to remember to take time to work on ourselves, to understand who we are and know who we are. And by knowing who we are, we can then figure out what goals are actually aligned with who we are and will bring us closer to self-realisation, and which goals are not close to who we are and will actually pull us off our path and leave us feeling incomplete or insecure because we're doing something that isn't actually who we are. So I'll do another video on the new moon though to go into much more detail, because there's quite a few aspects to it and it needs its own report really. But the other key, we've also got at the start of the week, Saturn is just finishing off or coming out of its conjunction with Pluto completely, and it's also coming out of a square with Uranus. So initially we may still feel that sense of transformation of our psyche taking place, and also the pressure or the crisis feeling of needing to initiate changes in our lives to become close to who we are and to more closely align with the spark of I am consciousness, and to elevate its function beyond the shallow ego to the ego being aligned with who we are, and embracing the changes necessary to move out of egoic consciousness into self with a capital S conscious. So this square will highlight where we experience resistance to change, or where do we engage in rebellion rather than transformation in order to use up the energy that Uranus is bringing without actually changing our relationship or changing who we are to reflect the deeper truths of our nature. But this will be fading out consistently as the week goes on, having the exact aspect taking place a couple of days before, on Monday just gone. But the key date this week will be Saturday, so this is the 20th. There's three things happening. One, the Sun is going to be moving out of Capricorn into Aquarius. It starts a new cycle of awareness, or a new phase of awareness if you like, rather than cycles. It's the next step up from Capricorn, or the next step along. And this is where we may be looking at where, with Capricorn, we may have achieved a sense of enlightened self-interest, or understanding who we are and what it is that we need to create for ourselves. But once you reach the peak of the mountain, there's only one way you can go, and that's down again. And this is the Aquarian stage. We've climbed to the top of our own personal mountain of achievement. Now it's time to come back down and share the wisdom that we've gained through our climb to the top with other people, to help them with their lives and to aim for the betterment of society as a whole. So it's having an altruistic need, but in order to do this first, we need to know who we are, and we need to separate ourselves out from the collective unconscious first. This usually takes place in group scenarios to begin with, but for true self-realization, true individuation, we need to spend some time alone as well, in order to separate our sense of self from the influences around us and from the groups that we're part of. But once we have a clear idea of who we are, what our unique sense of self is, by separating out what isn't who we are, we then need to, we should be tapping into the higher mind by this stage through knowing who we are and allowing revelation to show us who we are. But from there, we then need to look into the vision that we have as a result of this process, and figure out what goals we want to set in order to aim for a better society, or the greater welfare of humanity. And from there is uniting or working together with like-minded people who have a similar mindset, similar ideal, and working together to create a community based around the principles and vision that we've elucidated, and from here work together to create a community that's bonded around shared ideals and is based on self-empowerment, of mutual interest and mutual cooperation, in order to bring about more enlightened perspective and a more enlightened way of living together. So that's the Sun movement. At the same time, we're going to have Mercury starting to move into a conjunction with Pluto. So this is a time where the rational mind, the intellect, may experience a degree of polarization, as the shadow side of the intellect and the controlling side of it is exposed, along with the more positive sides, where the intellect is working in alignment with our soul's directives, and the mind is being reduced to the servant role it's meant to have to the soul. So whatever vision that we have, whatever goal that we need to be achieving, or whatever steps we need to take in order to engage in self-realization. The rational mind is brought into alignment with that, and it works with us to achieve the goals and to take the actions in our day-to-day lives in order to take the steps towards that goal, rather than the rational mind being in control of everything and being dictated by the ego. So we're pursuing things that aren't aligned with who we are, who we think we are, and our thinking can become too stuck. So this is a time of purifying, renewing the mind. It's facing our own minds, facing the way our thought patterns work, and transforming them so that we can let go of anything, thought patterns which undermine us or stop us from being the best versions of ourselves, and to take the steps necessary to transform the mind by relinquishing old thought patterns and old ways of communicating that have outlived their use, and purge them so that the way that we communicate with others and the way we perceive things, the way we think about things, is transformed so it's close to who we are, but is also based in truth rather than trying to manipulate for what we want. And the other one is Pallas Athena is going to be moving into Taurus again. She was there briefly last year around about October, November time, but she went retrograde and has backtracked into Aries, and she's been there since November, but now she's back in Taurus. And with Pallas Athena, we're looking at things like moving away from the wisdom of inspired action to wisdom of common sense. It's looking at things like moving back towards ecology and understanding the natural cycles of things, and realising that spending time in nature can be very healing in and of itself, spending time in green environments. And it's also, Pallas Athena deals with artwork, and this could be very tactile. Taurus deals with the physical senses, deals with touch, sight, smell, and it's aligning with these and using them for healing. So in terms of healing, we could be talking about more hands-on healing, or using nature itself to heal, so natural remedies. And just spending time in nature can be very therapeutic, because we're all designed to be connected to the earth, but modern lifestyle has the effect that we're not. So spending time in nature can be very therapeutic, can be very calming and very healing. And with Pallas Athena going through here, it's also the wisdom of ecology. So it's understanding that everything is interconnected. If we tamper with the natural cycles, there's going to be some negative adverse effects from it. But if we align with the natural cycles, we work with them and let them guide us in our lives, so that we understand what is going on, when is the best time to do things based on how things are naturally unfolding. And it's allowing things to develop organically rather than trying to force things. I mean, a plant or any crops that you grow, they will grow at their own time. You cannot speed nature up, you cannot make a plant grow any faster. It just requires patience and consistent nurturing of that plant to allow it to grow until we can crop it. So spending time in nature can help us deal with this tendency that we often may have of trying to make things happen faster, of trying to rush things, and instead learn to slow down and let things happen at their natural timing, at the right timing. Because if we're following the natural flow of things, then the right things will happen at the right time, rather than trying to push them to happen and it ends up coming out stunted or just aborts the growth altogether. So it's a time of working with the natural cycles and potentially spending more time in nature to help get that sense of groundedness, of stillness necessary to for certain kinds of healing to take place. So that's useful guides for this week. There's quite a lot there, but the main thrust of it is initially working on things like self-discipline, our self-control, and being our authentic selves by aligning our sense of self with who we are, rather than trying to do something or develop a sense of self based on what society asks us or thinks we should be doing, but isn't aligned with who we are. So it's a week of finishing off the work of knowing who we are and aligning our public identity with our private, And then the second half is going to be sharing the gifts that we have, sharing the knowledge, the wisdom with others who are ready to hear it, so that they can then use the same wisdom to boost their own lives. So it's a shift towards a more humanitarian focus. And with Palestine moving back into Taurus, it's also a time of focusing on getting back in touch with the natural cycles, aligning our lives with them and our actions, so that we're actually letting things happen of their own course, and we're going with the natural flow of things rather than trying to force them. So, I hope it's useful, guys, this week. Maybe many blessings. Take care.